For most of human history, scientists believed they understood the limits of the human body. There were rules, clear rules, rules about how our bodies survive, how our lungs use oxygen, how our blood carries nutrients, how muscles function, and how long a human being can endure extreme conditions. These rules were built on centuries of research. Medical science, biology, and physiology all agreed on one thing: the human body has limits. But in one remote corner of the world, researchers discovered something that made those rules feel fragile. A small tribe living far from modern civilization appeared to break several fundamental laws of human biology. At first, scientists thought it was a mistake. Then they thought it was exaggeration. But after years of research, careful measurements, and direct observation, yet the evidence began to point toward something extraordinary: a group of humans whose bodies worked in ways science could not fully explain. And the mystery still isn't solved. The story begins in a region of the world that few outsiders had ever visited, a harsh landscape of towering mountains, thin air, and brutal environmental conditions. In places like this, survival itself is difficult. Even trained mountaineers struggle to function at extreme altitudes. As oxygen levels drop, the human body begins to fail. Breathing becomes difficult, muscles weaken, the brain slows down. This condition is known as hypoxia. It is the reason climbers preparing to summit the highest peaks on Earth spend weeks acclimatizing. Without time to adjust, the human body simply cannot survive. But this tribe had lived there for generations. They hunted, worked, raised children, and walked long distances across the mountains every day. Not slowly, not cautiously, but with a level of endurance that surprised visiting researchers. When early explorers first described them, the reports sounded unbelievable. Members of the tribe could run across steep mountain terrain for hours without exhaustion. Their breathing remained steady even at altitudes where outsiders struggled just to walk. And some of them seemed capable of physical feats that pushed far beyond normal human limits. At first, scientists assumed the explanation was simple. People who grow up at high altitudes often develop larger lungs and slightly different blood chemistry. Populations living in the Andes and the Himalayas, for example, show genetic adaptations that help them process oxygen more efficiently. But when researchers began studying this tribe more closely, they noticed something unusual. Their bodies weren't just adapted. They appeared to operate under a completely different set of biological responses. Blood tests revealed oxygen levels that should have caused severe fatigue in most humans. Yet the tribe members showed no signs of weakness. Muscle endurance tests showed performance levels that seemed inconsistent with the available oxygen in their environment. Even more puzzling, their bodies did not show the same long-term stress markers typically found in high-altitude populations. For decades, scientists had believed they understood how humans adapt to extreme environments. Now they were no longer sure. One research team decided to investigate further. They spent months living near the tribe, documenting daily life and conducting medical tests with the consent of community leaders. The results only deepened the mystery. Researchers noticed that the tribe's breathing patterns were unusually efficient. Even during intense physical activity, their oxygen consumption appeared far lower than expected. In simple terms, their bodies seemed to use oxygen more effectively than modern science believed possible. But that was only the beginning. Some members of the tribe demonstrated an ability that stunned visiting physiologists. They could hold their breath for extraordinarily long periods of time, much longer than the average human. Even more surprising, this ability was not limited to a few individuals. It appeared to be relatively common throughout the community. As scientists initially assumed, this might simply be the result of training or lifestyle. Perhaps years of hunting or swimming had strengthened their lungs. But detailed measurements suggested something deeper. Their bodies seemed to tolerate low oxygen levels without triggering the usual panic response in the brain. In most humans, falling oxygen levels cause an immediate survival reaction. The brain sends signals demanding air, forcing the person to breathe. Yet in this tribe, that response appeared muted. It was as if their physiology had been recalibrated. Then researchers noticed another unusual pattern. Members of the tribe seemed remarkably resistant to certain illnesses. Medical teams documented surprisingly low rates of conditions that normally affect populations living in extreme environments. And even infections that typically spread easily in remote regions appeared less common among them. Of course, the idea that a tribe could possess unique biological traits raised many questions. Were these differences genetic? Were they environmental? Or had centuries of isolation allowed their bodies to evolve along a different path? Scientists began searching for answers. Genetic studies revealed several rare variations in genes associated with oxygen transport and cellular metabolism. These genetic markers were either extremely rare or completely absent in most human populations. Some researchers suggested that natural selection had shaped the tribe's physiology over thousands of years. In a brutal environment where survival was difficult, even small biological advantages could become dominant traits over generations. And others proposed a different explanation. They believed the tribe's lifestyle might play a major role. Their daily routines involved constant movement through rugged terrain. Their diet consisted primarily of natural foods, gathered or hunted locally. Their exposure to pollutants, processed foods, and modern stress was almost non-existent. In other words, their bodies had developed under conditions very different from those experienced by most modern humans. But even these explanations did not fully account for the strange data researchers were seeing. The tribe's metabolism, lung capacity, and oxygen usage patterns seemed to push beyond the known limits of human physiology, and that led to a more unsettling possibility. Perhaps modern science still does not fully understand the potential range of human biology. After all, the human species evolved across an enormous variety of environments. From deserts and jungles to frozen tundras and high mountains, each region placed different demands on survival. Over thousands of years, those pressures could have shaped populations in ways that researchers are only beginning to discover. Some scientists now believe that small, isolated communities like this tribe may hold valuable clues about the hidden capabilities of the human body. If their biological traits can be understood, they might even help medical science. For example, understanding how their bodies tolerate low oxygen levels could improve treatments for heart disease, lung disorders, or conditions that restrict oxygen flow to the brain. Their metabolic efficiency might also offer insights into endurance, aging, and resilience. But studying such communities presents difficult challenges. Researchers must balance scientific curiosity with respect for the tribe's privacy and culture. Many indigenous groups have experienced exploitation or disruption after contact with outsiders. Today, ethical guidelines require careful collaboration with local communities before conducting research. In this case, scientists have worked slowly and cautiously, and even after years of study, the tribe remains something of an enigma. Some researchers argue that there is no single explanation. Instead, they believe the mystery is the result of several factors working together: unique genetics, extreme environmental adaptation, and a traditional lifestyle that modern societies rarely experience anymore. Others think there may still be unknown biological mechanisms involved, processes within the body that science simply hasn't discovered yet. And that possibility raises an intriguing question. How many other hidden variations of human biology exist across the planet? The truth is, our species is far more diverse than we often realize. For most of human history, communities developed in isolation, separated by oceans, mountains, deserts, and forests. Each group adapted to its environment in ways that may not be immediately visible. But sometimes, when scientists look closely enough, those differences become impossible to ignore. The mysterious tribe living in the mountains reminds us of something important. Human biology is not as rigid as we once believed. The limits we think we understand may not be absolute. They may simply reflect the environments we are familiar with. And somewhere beyond those boundaries, there may be other possibilities waiting to be discovered. For now, the tribe continues living much as it has for generations. Hunting, traveling across the mountains, breathing the thin air with ease, while researchers continue studying the clues their bodies provide. Each discovery brings science a little closer to understanding the mystery, but it also raises new questions. Questions about evolution, about human potential, and about the hidden capabilities still locked within our own biology. Because sometimes, the greatest scientific discoveries do not come from laboratories or advanced technology. They come from the quiet corners of the world, places where people have lived for centuries, adapting in ways modern science is only beginning to comprehend. And in those places, the human story may be far stranger than we ever imagined.